Hi, this is Jim from RCPlaneviews. Welcome to this video on the Dynam PT-17. This one came from BitGo Hobbies here in the United States. The folks at BitGo Hobbies provided this model for review, and we thank them for letting us have a shot at it. Dynam models are a good value for your RC model money, so be sure to check out what BitGo has to offer, including this PT-17. If you visited the channel before, you remember that with most new models, I do a comprehensive assembly log and a flying video. I've decided to change things up a bit and do a separate unboxing and parts review for those wanting a sense of what they'll be getting when ordering the model. I'll then still do an assembly log and flying video. As we get started, please click the thumbs up button below the video and subscribe to the RCPlaneviews.com channel. Click the bell icon to be notified when I post new videos. Now, the PT-17 started out as a Stearman Model 75 in the early 1930s. Boeing bought Stearman in the mid-1930s and sold the airplane to both the Army Air Corps and the Navy as a primary trainer. They played that role throughout World War II. The Army livery or color scheme was yellow wings and a sky blue fuselage. The Army referred to them as the PT-17, and the Navy called them the N2. The N2S nomenclature denoted the engine attached to the airplane. The Navy livery was all yellow like this one. Students referred to the plane as the Yellow Peril. Dynam's model is modeled after an airplane with a current FAA registration, which means the full-scale version of this model is still flying. This model has a 1,300 millimeter wingspan, a 995 millimeter fuselage length, and is equipped with a 650 kV BM3527 brushless motor. The motor spins a 13x6 prop, and the whole thing is powered by a 4-cell LiPo battery connected to a 50-amp ESC. Let's take off the lid and see how the model will show up at your door. As you can see in the box, there's not much to look at here, but what's really cool is how well Dynam packs these models for shipment. You know, coming from China, there's a lot of jostling that happens to cargo as it moves across the sea and across the country. And so this model is, I expect, to come out of these boxes very well protected without a lot of dents and dings. Many of the individual components are in their own separate boxes, as you can see, and within the boxes, some of the components are actually in their own separate plastic bags to provide them even a little more protection. So let's get all this stuff out on the table and take a look at what you're going to get. Okay, we've got stuff out of the box, and as I described, nearly everything was in its own plastic bag within each of those boxes that you saw just a minute ago, which means that on a quick perusal of the parts, they came through the shipping process in really good shape. So let's take a look at the parts and see what's happening. First out of the box is the fuselage. It is very nicely done. I don't see any dings. They've just got a small handful of the molding vents on this fuselage, so it's got a very nice look to it. And there's just a hair of overspray here on this red, nothing to worry about. And then it's got the plastic mounts for things like the cabanes and the supports and the flying wires and so forth. They've got the windscreens on, they're nice and secure, so that's good. And then here you can see that it's got a little hatch or latch to take the hatch off, so you can see inside it's got the battery bay, the Skylord 50-amp ESC with an XT60 style connector, and the servo leads. Here you can see that each of them has a little collet on it so that each of those servos is moving 2 leads. So the rudder moves the rudder and the tail wheel, and then the other one moves the elevators, which there's a control rod to each half of the elevator on both the right and left sides of the model. and then a nice little strong plywood shelf here to mount your receiver in. So this looks pretty good. I'm very pleased with it. It is heavy, and the heaviness happens here in the front. And so let's take the cowling off the motor. It connects via magnets right here. I'll have to see whether I want to add any support there or screw of some type. Probably start off with the magnets just to see how it works. Here is that brushless BM, and this one says it's a 26A motor. And so I don't know if 26A and 27 make any difference or not, but it's a 26A is printed on the motor. It's got the down and right thrust to it, which is usually pretty important, especially with biplanes. So you want that thrust line to be appropriate. So it looks pretty good there. Here is the really heavy part, and that's why we may want to put some additional support here on it. Each of these cylinders is filled with lead, and as you can look inside here, I'm not sure you're going to be able to see it from there, but each one of these hollow cylinder bays is filled with pieces of lead, and then it's all sealed up with some hot glue. So it doesn't look like it's going to go anywhere. It's all in there nice and tight. None of them have fallen out or anything like that. So it's looking pretty good, but there's quite a bit of weight there. And that, of course, is on the full-scale airplane. It was a big, heavy radial engine on the front of the airplane. And so we've got to offset that weight, because here with our models, you know, a little electric motor doesn't have near the weight that full-scale motor would have for this kind of model. So looking good on the fuselage here. Okay, so here on the bottom, we've got the little plastic receivers for the screws that'll hold the bottom wing on right here. And then we've got a nice strong plastic embedded plate here for the landing gear. And there must be, oh my goodness, probably 10 screws that'll hold that on. So the landing gear should be pretty secure in this configuration. So that's the fuselage coming out of the kit, and it's really pretty nice. And so one of the things that I'm noticing here on all of the parts that I've got laid out is that it's a really nice paint job. The paint, there's not a lot of overspray on the two different colors. It's a nice smooth finish. There's not, you know, a lot of runs or drips or dribbles. It just looks really, really nice. And so this is pretty typical for these new Dynam airplanes. Dynam airplanes had gotten a bit of a reputation as being, you know, not top quality in the past, but they have really worked hard at working on their quality control and of their models. And I tell you what, as I look across my workshop here, I've probably got close to 8 or 9 Dynam models. I can see a Meteor and a Skytrainer and a Corsair and a T-28 and Turbo Jet and an SR Trainer, just a few of the Dynam models here in my hangar. So I'm a real Dynam fan, because they give you a very reasonable price along with reasonable quality, and with the upgrades to quality they've made in the last couple of years, these are really a good value for your RC model money. You can find models that you could probably describe as being a little bit higher quality than these, but at the same time you're going to spend $100 or more for that model, and for me that isn't worth the price. Dynam has got some good stuff coming out right now. So let me move the fuselage out of the way, and we'll take a look at the wings next. Okay, so here we've got the bottom wing, and you've got the servo right here. You've got a little spar going through the aileron, so it gives it some additional strength, so that's very good. This is a very nice sharp paint line right here. On the other side, the servo wire comes out. Now the real airplane, or the full-scale airplane of the PT-17, did not have flaps, nor does this, and it only had ailerons on the bottom, which of course this only has ailerons on the bottom. Here is the other wing, and this is going to go together just basically like this. We're going to use the glue, and I tell you what, that is a good seam. Sometimes the edges or the blunt ends of wings in Dynam models need a little sanding to get them to fit tight, but this one fits very, very nice. And there's going to be a spar that fits in here, and it's a long one. It goes almost all the way to the end. So we've got a very large, long, heavy spar for this bottom wing, which will make it very strong as you go out and want to try to do some, the typical aerobatics that RC guys like to do. So that's the lower wing. You can see the connectors for the struts on the outboard section. And so we'll take a look at those here in a minute when we get into the small parts. So let's take a look at the upper wing now. Now this is the upper wing. Again, a nice sharp paint line here. It looks good. And it's got the connectors for the wing struts on the outboard and the cabanes here on the inboard side. This also has a wire with some lights, and so it's got LEDs on the wing tips. So when we get this together, we'll take a look at that and see how bright they are. This one also comes with a small spar, and so you mount the spar in there. It fits through that little hole, and then it's got a cover that goes from side to side right here. And so this one has gotten bent a little bit in the shipping process, but the good news is it's pretty thin foam, and simply by applying a little bit of pressure, working it back into shape, that's going to work, and then making any curve to it that it may need to fit the curve of the wing on the bottom here. So that's the little cover for the bottom, and then here's the other wing. It's got the same parts. So with that in mind, let's kind of push this together and see what it looks like as well. Got the two little tabs, comes together, and again, that's going to be a nice clean joint when we put the glue on it. So we'll be probably use the factory glue. It's a contact cement. If you want to use something like foam tack or other third-party glues, they're also contact cement and they will work just fine. So that's the top wing. The next thing we'll take a look at here are the pieces for the empennage. And so as you can see, we've got the horizontal stabilizer and EPO style hinges for the elevators. The elevators aren't connected. That's why there are two controls coming out of the fuselage for elevator on both sides. You can see little indents with molded holes for the control horns that we'll be mounting during the assembly, and then a little screw receiver here. And so the rudder is pretty much the same, an EPO type hinge. It looks pretty good. It's got a molded area there for a control horn as well. And then this is just going to come together like this and then screw into the bottom of the airplane. Now, personally, I like screwed on parts. I tend not to use glue on them. That way, if I do happen to have an unfortunate incident, shall we say, with spare parts availability, you can just unscrew the damaged parts and replace them with something new, or take the parts off to do some repairs on. So that's the empennage. Again, a really nice paint job here. It's a flat finish, smooth. It's just really nice. Now, one of the things I like about Dynam airplanes is it comes with the decals on a sheet and not on the airplane. This allows you the opportunity to make some changes to the livery or the color scheme of your model without damaging the foam by pulling off the decals and then having to order another set of decals. The decals are strong, they're good vinyl, they're sticky. We'll talk about that when we put the model together some more, but they're really, really bright and colorful. By coming without the decals, you can make those changes. So for example, if you have a picture of a father or a grandfather standing beside one of these airplanes, maybe his airplane from World War II, if you're talking about a warbird, you can make those changes to make it more of a family heirloom kind of thing without damaging the model by pulling decals off. So here are the decals. They're nice and bright, and they look quite accurate. You can see the words change, or the letter color changes here, and on the numbers as it goes over those red stripes on the various components. Now, the last thing we're going to look at are some of the small parts bags that came with the model. I'm going to leave everything in the bags for now until I get ready to start assembling the model. With small parts like these, what I'd like to use is a little muffin pan to put these things in and to label them appropriately, because sometimes the difference between a 20 millimeter screw and a 25 millimeter screw can really make a difference in terms of whether it fits with the model. So I like to be very careful with my screws, and I like to have a ruler that's graduated in millimeters close by so that I can double check the length of what I'm using to install the various components. Here in the small parts bag, we can see we've got skirts for the landing gear. We've got the control horns for the empennage. These are simulated flying wires for the tail section, both on the upper and lower sides of the horizontal stabilizer. Here's some screws. These long ones, I'm betting, are the ones that mount the wings to the fuselage. A little screwdriver comes with it, along with an Allen wrench. Here's an assortment of all kinds of little screws here. These are likely going to be the screws that we use to mount the cabanes and the wing struts that we've got right here, and they're nice, strong, lightweight metal, so those will work well. Then there's a couple of tubes of glue. As I said earlier, I tend to use the factory glue. If you use it right, it works well. I've got a couple of models I've had for years and are just as tight as the day I put them together using this glue. If you have other glue that you prefer, go for it. And here are the flying wires for the main wings, so that's going to be a very nice touch. And then this has got a couple of stickers for the instrument panel, a couple of ground handling grab bars, I think is what those are, for the back of the model, the plate that goes over the landing gear to hold it secure, the tail wheel, and then a couple of connectors. It looks like it's the Dynam branded light controller for the LEDs. So that's very cool that that's included in the kit. So the only thing that I'm really going to start with by making a change is that in the actual airplane, the struts are yellow. And so I think I've got a spray can of yellow paint somewhere here in the workshop. I'm going to take these out back and give them a quick coat of yellow paint to make it just a little bit more realistic as it applies to the struts and the cabanes. The last thing in the small parts box was the landing gear assembly. You can see it's got heavy metal, it's strong, so there's not a lot of give to it. It's got a little plastic simulated scissors there on the end, wheel collets, and the tires are here in the bag as well. Now the kit also comes with a propeller. This one comes with one propeller, and it looks like there's a second spar in this bag. There was one in the box that's about this same size, I assumed was for the upper wing. This one has got one in the bag as well. So don't know if that's just extra or change in packing procedure at Dynam or what, but that's the last of the small parts pieces there, the landing gear. And then we'll wrap up the stuff in the box with a quick look at the instruction sheet. As you can see, it's just a single large piece of paper. It's got some color pictures of the various parts of the model in the upper left-hand corner. It's got 5 pictures showing the assembly. Again, it's a pretty simple assembly, but it's assuming that you have a little bit of experience. And if you don't, stay around and watch the assembly video for this airplane that I'll be posting here very soon. One of the other things it shows is where all the decals go, so you can get the decals on right. And it gives you, of course, a diagram of where the center of gravity is, along with the required warnings and so forth. So that's the instruction sheet. The other sheet that comes along with this is the programming sheet for the Skylord 50 amp ESC. So that addendum is folded in, so be sure to look for that to make sure that the Skylord in its default settings are what you want. I hope you've enjoyed this unboxing video of the Dynam PT-17. As you can see, there are not a lot of parts that you're going to have to deal with, but it's got some very nice scale touches that will help you enjoy the assembly by making it more than just a slap-together model. The PT-17 had great fit and finish, as I've mentioned a couple of times before, and it is a very nice airplane. Now, I have the Dynam Waco, which is a very similar power and size to this, and it flies great. So I'm anticipating that this is going to be a very nice flying model. If you're in the market for a nice biplane, the PT-17 from Dynam should be one of the ones that you take a closer look at. I'll also be doing an assembly and flying video, so please take a look for those. Now, if you found this video helpful, please click the thumbs up button below the video and subscribe to the RC Planeviews channel. Click the bell icon to be notified when I post new videos. Thanks for watching.